Welcome, everybody. I'm joined by Steve, and we're here to talk about 2023. The year is almost over, so we thought we'd put together some of the highlights of the year for us in collecting and dead CCGs, as well as some of the lowlights at the very end. But
Mhm.
this is a video we were kind of going back and forth like, wow, this has been a pretty great year for both of
Mhm.
us. And so I've got five, Steve's got five.
Mhm.
You want to start off with your first one, Steve?
Yeah, sure. Happy to. Hey, everybody. So yeah, thinking back on the year, one of my highlights for the year, number five, is building a Magic the Gathering pre-modern cube.
Ooh,
So the pre-modern format is basically the old border cards with some of the earliest sets cut out. So it's a format for constructed deck, but I wanted to take that format and make a cube out of it because I'll talk about this in low lights later, but with the constant churn of Magic products, I got to thinking about how I could play Magic more like a retro CCG. So I put together a pre-modern cube. I got stored in this like big box, and
storage is clutch, man.
yeah,
It feels so good with it's all here, and it's not one of those white like cardboard
oh
boxes.
yeah. No,
Nice
I
and
got this new Dex protection. I guess called like a one row, I think, and
yeah, it's
yeah,
got like a magnet on there.
with the
Maybe some
magnet, and I'm using
concrete
these
peel on
resealable booster packs from Cubemajig that are pretty cool. And I'm just like, I got a group together now. We're gonna be playing Magic the way I played it back in middle school, and getting out of the product churn, just getting into like cards I love from back in the day. So
yeah.
yeah.
I also have something on this list about a cube, but I love playing with cubes because you can just put the stuff you want in
Mhm.
there
Yep.
and then play with it, and you get to play with
Yeah.
your favorite cards and sort of a recreating of a booster box pull feel. So definitely super cool accomplishment, and also something that is way more time consuming than you
Oh,
think.
the sorting is real. The sorting and resorting.
Okay, so I'm going to do five on my list. So
Mhm.
this is a bit cheesy, but number five on me is growing this YouTube channel to 1,000+ people
Mm.
for games that have been out of print for decades. I am just so like surprised and taken aback and with the outpouring of like support and what
Mhm.
people have tuned in to watch. It's just been awesome. You guys are awesome. Thank you for tuning in for the last year, 2 years. But these games are hard to find information on. So the whole point of this YouTube channel is to provide free resources for people looking to get back into this stuff, looking for entertainment, looking for engagement. Because I say this all the time, but there's no company that's going to come in and swoop in and say, "We're reprinting it. We're going to create a Twitter handle. We're going to create all this like buzz around this." That sort of responsibility has been passed on to the gamers and the fans of these products. So Lord of the Rings, Star Wars CCG, Young
Mhm.
Jedi, all this stuff. I love it. I've really enjoyed collecting it. I've really enjoyed playing it, which is on my list, and I'll get to in a minute. But I just want to say a big thank you to everybody for tuning in this year because we almost had 100,000 total views, and I'm like, I have no idea
Wow.
why
Yeah.
why 100,000 people have tuned in this year, but it's just big thanks to everybody here. So that's my number five is growing a YouTube channel for out of print CCGs with a little bit of magic stuff sprinkled in, but
Mhm.
it's great. So back to you, Steve.
That's a huge accomplishment. Yeah, congrats on the 1,000. We're gonna get to 2,000 in the next year.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
and then 1 million. That's the goal after that. Is one. Uh,
Well, my number four highlight of this year is finally completing my Star Wars CCG collection. Um, thank you. It's everybody has to declare when they're complete in their own mind. For me,
right.
complete is having at least one copy of each mechanically unique different card. So I'm not going to go for every foil, every AI or anything like that, but just have at least one copy, and for most cards, two copies, so I can pretty much build whatever I want. And yeah, I remember that like back in 1995, I think it was maybe six, I got my first product. It was the two-player game, and I pulled this rare from the booster pack. And I'm pretty sure this is the battered white border copy of Circle is Not Complete that came in that booster pack in the two-player game. And then I got my last card, which the last one I needed was All Wings. Yeah, it's Short Range Fighters and Watch Your Back, the dark side
Which
version.
is a surprisingly expensive card because it's
It
useful.
is. It's like $30 or so right now, and it's a bit more than the price. So it's actually kind of hard to come by. Like Category One had out of print for a while, out of stock for a while, and didn't come up on eBay too often. So yeah. So the first one, the last one. I'm happy to have my collection as far as I consider it complete.
Now I wish I would have done that for something on my list. I didn't know you had cool visual aids like that.
Just a couple, yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
I mean, literally, it is also the circle is now complete. Like,
yeah, that's like not a bad one to start with, and yeah.
All right, so the next thing on my list is playing games and building decks again. I had just sort of let this muscle atrophy over the last 20 years, where I was like, and I kind of, I played some online games like Gwent or, Hearthstone. I would sort of be like a net decker. And now I'm like, no, I kind of want to build decks again and get back into mechanics and synergy. And it's turned into a really fun way to spend an hour. And I just am really happy that I've gotten back into it. Now I have maybe 10 Star Wars CCG decks kind of like made in the retro format. If I want to do open, I can do open. But the fact is, like, no one around me plays the open. But I have some Lord of the Rings stuff pre-made. So when you're in town, Steve, I'd love to, you can just crack those decks open and we can play, because this is one of the biggest impediments to playing games is building of the decks. And if you can remove that barrier and make it a little easier for people to have this on-ramp, it's like, hey, this is your deck. You're going to do probably these 3 things with it. Just take it and go. It's sleeved, ready to go. You're going to have an easier time, getting people to play games with you. So this has been a lot of fun to do. It's also been a lot of hours. They're well spent hours. Some you can put like some music on or a podcast and just sort of sort some cards out. I do double sleeve everything, which makes everything so.
I finally got into double sleeving this past year. I was kind of a holdout for a long time, but there were a couple of near misses with beers. Maybe when we were playing at one point, and I'm like, yeah, these are getting kind of expensive, these Star Wars decks and some other decks. I've double sleeved my Star Wars decks, and I'm going to move into some of the other games double sleeving soon.
Yeah, not everything is double sleeve, but a lot is. I mean, the other thing as well is I feel like I need to set out a sleeve budget, because I'm like, I've bought 1,000 sleeves and 100 sleeves is $12. Okay, let's not do this math too much. Like, and you start to realize that you've spent over $100 on sleeves, and it's not great. But so that's my number 4. It's really getting back into it, and it just feels good to play stuff again. Like, I think whatever the PlayStation slogan, like play with your friends or something, but it makes everything in this hobby feel less solitary, feel like you're just sort of doing this in a void. It's like, no, you're doing this with the intent of you can play this, you can collect it, but having decks ready to go makes that playing much easier. So that's my number 4.
On to my number 3 is similar to yours, but mine is playing TCGs with my son. And I think you'll be getting there pretty soon with you have a kid. But
she's really just putting everything in her mouth right now. So I don't want to keep those away. You'll get the slobber.
No, what's funny is like playing TCGs with my son started with him. I think he knew I had card games and stuff, but he came home from school towards the end of kindergarten. He's like, I want to get Pokemon cards because they got Pokemon cards at school. And I'm like, yeah, we could make that happen. I played a little Pokemon back in my day. I didn't play it a really long time, but so yeah, we started with like the Battle Academy, just like more board game style thing, and then Pokemon cards are actually really cheap where I live abroad, and so we just started collecting them. And maybe it's got a little out of hand. He's got, elementary schooler's first Dex protection binder. I might have recommended this one, and I just started collecting with my son. We're playing a lot of Pokemon, and having a lot of fun with that. And he knows the rules pretty well. We got into Lorcana a little bit. I think Lorcana's a little harder, but he understands the rules. Can't quite always make the right plays, or even like strategically optimal plays, but. So we're starting with those, and maybe Magic in a couple of years, and Star Wars. Yeah, it's really fun.
Awesome. My hope for that binder is it doesn't suffer the fate of so many binders of stolen from your book bag, right? That was the classic.
I did. I'm not trying to be like the Lego dad from the Lego movie or anything, but I'm too controlling. But I told him that like the binder can't go to school anymore, so I'm getting him a separate binder for like stuff he has extras of, commons, uncommons, duplicates. But there's just like. Kids are getting really way too into looking at his binder, and there were a couple like not ideal trades that got made. So now the binder's staying at home.
You got to sneak an air tag in there or whatever, so you can always see that's the.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully in 20 years when he comes back, he's like, Dad, where's my Pokemon stuff? It'll be easy to find and not something that ended up at a garage sale like so
No,
many other people's Pokemon stuff.
it'll be fun.
Um, that's a special one. Actually, playing games with your kids and teaching them. And I was actually just at my local game store yesterday, and the owner was there, and I talked with her, and she met the baby and all this stuff. And she's like, you know, gaming is great for kids, right? It's great for their memory, it's great for their retention. So there's all sorts of reasons of why it's great for developmentally for children as well. So
Yeah, I do recommend if you're iffy about game, like check out Pokemon. You don't have to go like too crazy. A lot of the cards are really cheap, but like if you have kids who are 5, 6, 7, it is really good for math. Like you learn how to count by tens really quickly because the hit points are all base 10, and yeah, it's a fun game in its own way. So
yeah. All right, my next one is still a work in progress, but semi-successfully cleaning out my collection. And this kind of goes into building decks, where I started to build decks, and I'm like, okay, like, yeah, I needed 3 Master Lukes for a Prophet deck, but I don't need 2 extra. So I could actually do anything with these 2 extra. Like maybe I'll get rid of them. And, so that point where you let stuff go, and I think it can be really cathartic, cleaning stuff out, sort of Marie Kondoing your collection, where you're like, do you need this for your whatever sets? Okay. Do you want it in a nice binder? No, it's just in a little box. What are you going to do with it? What utility is it going to bring you? And when you start to realize like it's none, well, maybe you can just let it go. And fortunately, there's also a market for this stuff, and someone else can utilize that better. And I think that's sort of the approach to take. It's not about hoarding stuff. It's like, can someone else get more utility out of this than I can? And the answer is probably yes for most stuff, because I don't really have very many people to play with here. So my decks mostly sit in a box, but at least I want to have those made, but I don't need the extra stuff as much.
Yeah.
So
no, I think that's a good one.
Long-term project there, though. But back to you for your next one.
Yes, my number 2 is related to your channel. It's starting to get into researching TCG history. So we do that. We've been doing like this reoccurring series on like forgotten CCGs or CCGs people want to know a little bit more about. I thought it was really fun just to like dig into history, look at old scans of Scry magazines, and learn about different games, and learn that a lot of them are still being played by communities and have been sort of either rebooted or reinvented. And that was a really fun project. We got into like Battlestar Galactica for a little bit, and we did a few other games. And yeah, I hope to do more of that in 2024. I think there's a few more games out there we can dig into.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that it's the one thing it shows me is just like the resiliency of communities and people, like the X-Files CCG community. There's like still a pretty active community, and I mean that show is. I mean, X-Files is great IP, but it's also like pretty dated IP. Like I think it's like 25 years old at this point. They rebooted a show that wasn't popular, but it just shows like people love this stuff for a reason, and it's really nice to have hobbies. That's actually a big macro observation I have. It is extremely healthy to have hobbies. If your hobbies are board games, if your hobbies are cards, whatever it is, but having that outlet that's not just work or family is good for your brain. Yeah. And so I think it's great that people are still playing this stuff, and the resilience of these communities is like pretty remarkable.
Yeah, and learning how these games are like, sometimes people thought of CCGs as more like a transient thing. If the tournament scene dries up, it's gone. But really, a lot of these games are good games in their own right. Just like a good board game or a good role-playing game that like you can dig them out and have a lot of fun with them.
That's exactly. I got a whole wall of board games, and I'm just like, yeah, this is a fun game. Like the meta might be solved on it a little bit. Like the strategy, the optimal strategy for Risk is to take Australia and then work out right or whatever. Like we still like playing Risk, right?
Right.
So I think that's just something. Just because the meta might be solved for an out-of-print game doesn't mean it's not a good sort of experience to have with 2 friends for 3 hours. Exactly. So I think that's sort of the mentality you take with some of this stuff as well. And that's also why you should have some decks built. So you can actually just pop them out and play. Okay, the next one on my list, and this is a future tense as we're moving into the Christmas break period, but I'm building a Magic Lord of the Rings cube. I bought a bunch of the stuff, I'm a big Lord of the Rings fan, and I want to actually build a cube like Steve has with just sort of nice Lord of the Rings synergy and, actually hopefully recreate some stuff in that universe. I know the cards are, not everyone loved them, but I enjoyed them. I think there's some mechanics in there. There's some stuff. This is the other thing when you're building a cube, you can opt out of some of the stuff you don't like, right? If there's mechanics you don't like, just don't put them in there.
Mhm.
But this is like probably a project that's going to take like 20 hours, and it's in the future tense because I have the stuff semi sorted. I just need to like sit there and think, okay, what would this pair well with? That means I need to run 2 of this, and so it's a bit more mental math to do there.
No, I like the idea of a Lord of the Rings cube a lot. Well, Lord of the Rings Magic cube a lot. I mean, I was sort of curmudgeonly about Lord of the Rings Magic before it came out, and then when it came out, I was going through those cards. I'm like, no, these cards are really cool. The flavor is spot on. They found a way to mesh the mechanics with the lore really well. So, and then I think my only gripe about that set or the other like Universes Beyond stuff is that it kind of feels a little out of place with the Magic lore. But if you make a cube out of it, then problem solved. You're just playing Lord of the Rings Magic, and that seems like a really fun way to play it.
It's also a great way to utilize all these like comments and uncomments you got, right? Like, I opened I think 3 booster boxes total. I'm like, okay, I have a lot of commons and uncommons, and what am I going to do with these? So it's nice to just. I think it's going to be a 360 card cube. How big is your cube?
360, yeah.
360.
I think 360 is the right call for most people because it means 8 people, 3 packs per person. You see all the cards get drafted, or if you can do small number, you can like do sealed deck or some other like smaller draft variants.
Yeah.
Above 360, it's just like, I mean, it could yeah, those can be fun if you have a huge group of people drafting, or you want to have more variation, see fewer cards every time you draft. But yeah, for a set like Lord of the Rings, it's just one set, and like I guess it was like another smaller product later on. You probably 360 is going to be plenty.
Yeah, I think that's right. All right, last thing on your list, though, Steve.
The last one, I mean, it's just kind of a general, I guess, good vibes one, but it's seeing the retro CCG community really prosper this year. And I think that this was like the first like real post-COVID year. I think some people thought that these kind of retro games might be a bit of a bubble after people reemerged from their basements after COVID, they go into other hobbies. I don't really think that's the case. I mean, maybe the buying and selling market has cooled a bit, but I feel like the playing market has increased across the games, like Star Wars CCG. The retro league that I run with the players committee had, I think, like 62, 63, had like over 60 different people playing in the 5 events, and participation is across the board, and those was higher. Probably do something else about retro league in the future, but to recap that. But the other games like Star Trek CCG 1E had a really well attended Return of Talos 4 year-long event. I know that there was like stuff with Lord of the Rings, Middle Earth, CCG, X-Files that you mentioned. So yeah, like across all these retro games, there was action, bigger in-person events, bigger online events, and I think it's people are really getting into playing and like engaging with these games. And just one thing for me personally that was fun is that as I was traveling, or people were traveling to where I'm at, I got to like play some of these games people I've never even met before. And I think that's like a really cool thing to do. Like if you're on a business trip, just like look up whether it's Star Wars, Lord of the Rings, just like look up on the forums and see if anybody in the city where you're headed and message them, maybe get a game, you get a couple beers, a couple games in. It's like a fun way to do like a little bit of like game diplomacy when you're traveling. I thought that was kind of fun.
No, I mean, that's one of the things I love about gaming. It's a way to break the ice because you both have this commonality of an enjoyment of this game, right? And you can kind of skip the small talk. You're like, oh, so you live nearby? Okay, you just be like, okay, like what deck are you running? You're running that? Okay, that's what I'm running. This. Let's go. And I just find it a really nice way of connecting with people and sort of skipping all the like pleasantries that we have a lot of times trapped in with conversation, right?
Yeah, definitely. And then, if you're in a city or nearby a city where there's like an in-person tournament, just like check it out. I mean, most of these games, whether or not they're cheap or expensive to buy, most of these games people are going to like lend you decks to play with or teach you how to play, even if you just want to like show up and play like a game on the side of like a demo game. So yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I've found the community at large to be pretty like magnanimous as far as like what they'll do. Like, please play with my decks. Please like use my stuff. Like people want. I mean, it's like going back to the golden rule of talking to people. People love talking about themselves. People also love talking about the stuff that they do and like having other people think it's interesting. So, just try it out. I've gone to a couple local events here and gotten absolutely clobbered. But it was fun. It was like a fun way to spend an afternoon. It wasn't just like watching TV. So
yeah.
Okay, I have the last item on mine. Now I wish I'd gone and gotten my binder, but I managed to complete an entire fellowship Lord of the Rings block. So this is sets 1, 2, and 3 in foil. It's been like
Wow.
2.5 years of collecting. It's 609 cards.
And
And like,
every card in Lord of the Rings, at least for the movie block, is foiled, right?
yeah, so the math there ends up being like something like 1,820 odd cards are all foiled, and it's like a longer journey there to collect. But it's been a lot of like I did some numbers on it. I traded with people from 15 different countries, like 10 different U.S. states. I was like going through like doing the like trading Wrapped or something like a Spotify Wrapped, and I was like, wow, traded with guys in Brazil and Poland and Finland and Scotland. It's just like a lot of messaging dudes on the internet, but it was really rewarding, and it was nice to get to that point of completing it.
Really cool to flip through. I think you have a video of that, and I got to go back and watch that, but that's going to be really cool to flip through. Now, so then Towers block and Return of the King, every card is foiled. You can collect every card foil in those, but
I'm like halfway there with those as well, but I'm just like, it's a little less of a priority now. I mean, it's just sort of stuff I picked up along the way.
With like, what came after, like Shadows or whatever, the next few blocks, those they only foiled selected cards. Is that right?
Yeah, there's like RFs or rare foils. That stuff is a little less interesting to me. I really my eventual collecting goal is to get sets 1 through 10 foil, and so now I'm probably actually 2/3 of the way as far as card count, because like Return of the King block is half done, Two Towers is half done, but I'm not really hitting like the gas on this anymore. It's more like if stuff comes to me. But along the way, like a lot of times I just buy like an eBay lot of like 20 foils, and then I'd be like, oh, okay, like these are some that are from different sets. But it felt just like good to get that done. And now I'm like, should I get a different binder so they all fit in one binder rather than 2 binders? I'm like, oh my God, this is
Congrats. That's cool though. Yeah, that's really cool.
So those are my highlights. We got Steve's highlights. You want to do a couple low lights here at the very end? So people stuck around this long. To be negative. We're trying to be
a little. YouTube loves a little negativity. Now, I think nothing, no huge lowlights for me. I mean, everybody talks about Magic, the situation of Magic the Gathering. I found Magic to be definitely like a step down in quality in 23 than 22. Like 22 had so many good sets I liked. I liked Kamigawa Neon Dynasty, like Brothers War, like Dominaria United. 23 got off to a good start with Dominaria Remastered, which was actually like a best of like card set on the Dominaria plane, really useful for my pre-modern cube. But like after that was just like kind of dud after dud, with the exception of Lord of the Rings. But like found the conclusion to the Phyrexian Invasion block with March of the Machine to be pretty underwhelming. That March of the Machine epilogue set was like a total misfire. Wasn't really into the Return to Eldraine, and like the various other like supplemental sets didn't really do much for me. So I found Magic quite uninspiring, both from like a card quality and a like a flavor perspective in 23, and just like way too much product. So I guess that's my main low light. But like I'm saying, like the cube and sort of playing Magic the way I want to play it is sort of my counterbalance to that. And I think 24 could be better. They're dialing it back a little bit on the product releases. Not as many different kinds of booster packs is good, and there's some interesting ideas for sets in 24. So we'll see.
Yeah, I think on the Magic side, I mean, I think that the market is also reacting to this. Where one, like the value of stuff is way down, except for like select cards, and two, I saw Hasbro is laying off 1,100 employees. I don't know if they're all directly working on Magic. I think a large number of them are on the Magic product line. So obviously something wasn't working there, right? If there's a corporate decision being made to lay off 1,100 people right at the holidays, which also sucks to do.
Yeah, definitely.
It's corporate practice. So I think that I agree wholeheartedly, and I think a lot of people would agree. It was even hard to keep track of. Like I was at the local game store yesterday, and they're like, "Oh, we have the Warhammer Commander decks back in stock." And I was like, I forgot I was just so caught up in like I forgot there was a Warhammer one in like June or something, or May. And I think it was popular and like quite good, but I just couldn't keep track of it all. Like I can't keep track of 7 sets. Like I even thought with the Lord of the Rings set doing a part 2 special collector's booster like around the holidays with like I thought that was like a little unnecessary maybe, and saturating the scene with like new stuff, which I thought some of the stuff in there was cool, but you could have just put it in. I don't know, you couldn't even have marketed it differently. It was just like confusing, where it's like mostly the same cards, except some cards have scroll treatment.
I honestly don't even know if it's in that set. If they had like released that next year, given it a different name, I don't even know. Like I'm sure like a better name, but like Return to Middle Earth, or whatever you want to call it. It's a better name and a little more distance. It could have been better, but I don't know if maybe it had some like requirement they had to use the Tolkien IP for new cards in 23 only, or I don't know what the deal is with that, but that seemed very unnecessary.
Yeah, I agree. And this is the other thing is I wish they would get a little tighter on their products. I'm like, there are too many products. Like there's the Commander decks, and then there's Jumpstart, and then collectors boosters, and then set boosters, which I actually think they're getting rid of draft boosters. I think they might be getting cut from the product line.
What they're doing is they're combining draft and set boosters. So there's gonna be a new thing called Play Booster, which you can play with, which is good. It's going to be basically a set booster with a few tweaks, but that is draftable.
Yeah.
And so we're going to fold those two together, and Jumpstart boosters for anything other than like a flagship Jumpstart product are going to be removed, because those Jumpstart boosters that came with sets were very weak compared to the actual Jumpstart set.
Well, so it's like they're adding new, like the scene stuff from Lord of the Rings, which was confusing. Then there's like multiple collector boxes, and anyway, when you start adding it up, I'm like, you have like 20 different products like that you could have gotten along the line here. But that's the other one. I think our last low light here is Lorcana just underprinting. I think the game is going in a good direction. It seems like prices are way down as far as sealed product, and that's great. But the initial launch was just like a hot mess that attracted the worst characters of scalpers, and it just felt like there was like a gross market there that was kind of happening of people going and clicking on targets and stuff.
And then the game was cool. Like I'm having fun with it. It's just like, I want to buy this. Let me give you my dollars, but I can't. but I think it's better. I didn't really want to go to Amazon to buy it, but then the local game store seems to have it still. But I was able to get some Rise of the Floodborn off Amazon coming in the mail soon. So yeah, I'm hopeful that things will work their way out supply-wise. I still have high hopes for the game and a community developing around it that actually plays it in the new year.
Yeah, same. So I think that's all on my list. Is that all for you, Steve?
Yep, that's all for me, yeah.
Well, this has been a lot of fun, guys. I hope everyone has a great end to 2023 and a really successful 2024. Always love having Steve on here. Thanks for tuning in, everybody, and we'll see you next time.